My name is Arnis and I am from SEDA, the Sustainable Energy Development Authority of Malaysia. Some of you may know what SEDA is, but in case some of you are not so familiar with us, SEDA is the government agency reporting to the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources. SEDA is established under the SEDA Act 2011. Our key roles are to advise the Minister and the relevant government entities on all matters relating to sustainable energy. We are responsible for driving both the renewable energy and energy efficiency agenda in the country. Before we move on to the speakers, I would like to draw to your attention that you can key in your questions via question box anytime in the control panel. We will address the questions at the end of the speaker's presentation. It will be helpful if you can indicate at the start of your question which speaker you are directing the question to. Please ensure your laptop or mobile phone is sufficiently charged, and we appreciate your feedback, so feel free to fill in the survey form once you exit from the webinar. In today's webinar, we are pleased to have 3 speakers on board with us. We have Yang Berusaha Puan Usha Nandini Jayaram, SEDA's Authority Member, and Encik Ibrahim Arifin, Director Energy Analyst of Strategic Planning Division, and last and certainly not least, we have Encik Muhammad Shah Hambali Arifin, Deputy Director of Technical and Facilitation. So for today's agenda, we will start with the opening remark by SEDA's Authority Member, Yang Berusaha Puan Usha Nandini Jayaram, and continues with Encik Ibrahim's introduction on SEDA, which will present updates and career opportunities in renewable energy. Then we will continue with presentation by Encik Muhammad Shah Hambali on updates on energy efficiency and its career opportunities, and we will end this session with the Q&A session. Right, my introduction is done. I would like to move on to the first item on the agenda, and that is the opening remark by the Yang Berusaha Puan Usha Nandini Jayaram, SEDA's Authority Member. Puan Usha, is over to you. Please welcome.
For the introduction. A very good afternoon to Yang Berbahagia Datuk Hamzah bin Hussein, the CEO of SEDA Malaysia, Yang Berbahagia Dr. Keshwa Ambikapadi, Projects Director, Yayasan Strategic Social and the Coordinator of SISWA MIC. Our speakers for today, Encik Ibrahim Arifin, Director, Energy Analyst, Strategic Planning, SEDA Malaysia, Encik Shah Hambali Arifin, Deputy Director of Technical Development and Facilitation, SEDA Malaysia. Our moderator, Puan Arnis Abdullah Rashid, the Assistant Director of Strategic Communication, SEDA. And to all participants, wherever you may be watching this from, I hope you are all doing well. First and foremost, allow me to thank Yayasan Strategic Social for inviting SEDA to jointly organize this webinar on Malaysia's sustainable energy landscape, current and future state. I must say I'm indeed very pleased to see such a good turnout for this webinar, especially from young participants, and this certainly reflects the interest among youth in the sustainable energy space. Renewable energy has grown tremendously over the last decade. Since its inception, SEDA Malaysia has brought on positive improvement and expansion of the country's sustainable energy landscape over the last decade. Through close collaboration with the ministry, SEDA has successfully ensured existing renewable energy and energy efficiency programs and initiatives are managed and deployed efficiently, while constantly building new strategic partnerships with stakeholders to formulate potential solutions to diversify and complement the country's existing portfolio of SE offerings. As of the year 2020, Malaysia has incorporated 23% of RE in the capacity mix, with an estimated 8.4 gigawatt capacity reached in December 2020. This contributes to 20,030 jobs, in which SEDA has played a significant part alongside with the ministry and other agencies. Additionally, on human capital development, SEDA Malaysia has achieved 11,557 cumulative trained persons in RE training from the year 2011 to 2020. Alongside decarbonization and climate goals, renewable energy technologies create jobs up and down the supply chain and can spur broad and sustainable social and economic development. In the past few years, the authority has come up with ingenious way to reach out to students by initiating exciting SE programs, namely the SEDA Seed, SEDA's experiential learning tours to convey the message to the youth on the major role played by science and technology in the realm of socioeconomy and environmental sustainability. In today's session, I'm pleased to share that we have with us some of SEDA's experts who will be sharing SEDA's milestones and future efforts on Malaysia's renewable energy transition. I hope via this webinar, it will help to spark interest among young participants who will be our future leaders to venture in the area of sustainable energy, where participants will be exposed in career opportunities in both RE and EE. Here, I would like to extend my heartiest congratulations to SEDA Malaysia on its 10th anniversary, which falls on the 1st of September. I look forward to seeing SEDA to be at the forefront in developing the country's SE industry further moving forward. And I was informed that SEDA Malaysia is conducting various engaging programs and online competitions in conjunction with its 10th anniversary. I do hope participants today will join the programs and learn more about sustainability and SEDA Malaysia. Nevertheless, learning is never ending. Lastly, I wish all participants here a fruitful and engaging session with the speakers, and do stay safe, everyone. Thank you very much. Over to you, Arnis.
Thank you, Yang Berusaha Puan Usha, for the opening remark. I would like to start with our first presentation by Encik Ibrahim Arifin, Director of Strategic Planning Division. Encik Ibrahim has obtained his Master of Renewable Energy from the University of Malaya and Bachelor of Science in Electrical Power Engineering from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute from United States of America. Upon completion of his undergraduate studies, he served Tenaga Nasional Berhad, the largest electricity utility in Malaysia, as a senior grid planning engineer. His previous portfolio comprised of facilitating the integration of renewable energy projects into the national grid system, including the net energy metering and feed-in tariff programs. Encik Ibrahim, it's over to you and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bernice, for handing over the floors. And thank you also, Puan Usha, for the encouraging opening remarks and introduction of SEDAS and the histories and the achievement that we realized throughout these 10 years of operations. So for my sessions, inshallah, I will go over the sustainability energy markets that are been developing since the year 2001 until today, and we are look forward for further growth in terms of the sustainable energy sectors. And when we're talking about the sustainable energy, usually we are looking at the two perspectives, in which one is on the supply side, in which usually facilitated by the renewable energy itself, and on the another perspective is on the demand side itself, in which it will be involving around a lot on the energy efficiency and energy conservation initiative, in which this will be shared more by the second speakers, Encik Ambali. So if we can move to my first slides. Just an overview about SEDA Malaysia. We have established, as mentioned by Puan Arnis earlier, on the 1st September 2011. So just recently, in Wednesday, we are celebrating our 10th anniversary, and we look forward to further contribute to the nation's growth of the renewable energy industry. So the establishment of SEDA is under the SEDA Act 2011, in which was also introduced under the 9 Malaysian plans. It's a statutory body under the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources, with that holds the following 7 functions. But on these 7 functions, I just would like to summarize that mainly our roles is to advise the minister and relevant government entities on all matters relating to sustainable energy. And in particular, we in year 2011 as well, RE promoting mechanism was introduced, which is the feed-in tariff. So the key main objective of SEDA Malaysia is also to drive these implementations of these feed-in tariff programs. So to promote and implement the national policy objective for renewable energy to stimulate, facilitate and develop the sustainable energy at large with respect towards our global decarbonization agenda. Next slide, please. So today, climate change and sustainability has become the key motivations by many, not just countries, but also from the private sectors itself, financial institution itself. They are moving their strategic directions towards sustainability. So in my short presentation today, I try to wrap up all these 3 points within 30 minutes. I would like to address first of all, to understand on the energy sustainability itself. What's the things that we need to consider and how we can realize the energy sustainability agenda itself. And next are the renewable energy journey in Malaysia. I just go over the past and present states of the renewable energy growth and what we can look forward for in the near future. And next are my concluding remarks on what's next. Mainly, myself is also very overwhelmed by the encouraging participations. I see about 190 participants to this, and I believe most of it are from the youth, and these are very crucial, especially during this time, because the youth is the one that will continue the agenda of what we are developing today, and the youth will be continuing the agenda to make sure that we realize the carbon emissions targets that we are pursuing. So for the first part, towards energy sustainability. Next slide. So the motivations towards the sustainable development is to make sure that these 3 items can be maintained. The first of all is to maintain the level of comfort that we have today. So for example, currently I would say that most Malaysians already have the access for electricity at an affordable and high reliability rates. So as we know that when we use it at our household, for example, it's as easy as we just switch on the switch and we are able to utilize the electricity at an affordable rate. So as much as possible, this will be the key motivations in terms of even we are transitioning into a new energy transition phase by introducing this renewable energy and sustainable energy at large. We will want to make sure that the future generations are able to enjoy the level of comfort as much as today, if not better. And next are the improve of the electricity production cost itself. So looking at the current way of supplying the electricity, the energy sector are mostly dominated by the fossil fuels. To name few is coal and natural gas. And this has proven to become a reliable generation source and able to provide a very competitive and affordable production cost. Whereas for the renewable energy itself, I would say that it is relatively new compared to the fossil fuel technologies. So due to the current state, we can see that some of the RE technology have become more affordable over time, especially for the solar technology. And if we're looking at the global trends, the wind technology to be inclusive. But however, for certain technologies such as hydro and bioenergy, are one of the areas that we are still looking on ways to reduce the production cost, to make it competitive with other fossil fuel, and ultimately to make sure that the end users are able to enjoy a affordable electricity tariff. And ultimately, of course, with the climate change concerns today and our commitment to Paris Agreement 2015, we need to take into account the environmental considerations to make sure that the energy transition will give a positive impact to the environment. Or in brief, I would say that the development of the sustainable energy requires to strike a good balance between these 3 elements, which is the environment, society, and the economy. Next slide. So these are the concerted efforts needed towards the decarbonization agenda. So as most of us might aware that we are committed under this Paris Agreement 2015, in which this initiative have been joined by 196 countries around the world to make sure that in the future stage up until 2030, we are able to make sure that the increase of the global average temperature is well below 2 degrees. So a lot of initiative, engagement with local and international partners towards aligning our directions towards this Paris climate aspirations, in which to support this agenda, 17 goals of sustainable development goals, or in short we call it SDG, has been formulated to guide all the private sectors and government sectors to align our directions towards this SDG goals. So in particular for the sustainable energy developments, I would say that we can directly involve in these 5 pillars of the SDGs. The first of all is the strategy, SDGs number 7, which is the affordable and clean energy to all. And following from this, all this renewable, as mentioned by Puan Usha during her opening remarks, that this kind of development will allow for job opportunities and employment opportunities. So over the years, when we introduce a lot more renewable energy programs, they have opened up a new career path, new job employments to many. So the SDG number 8 is more focusing in terms of this decent work and economic growth. And in particular, during this point of time, due to the COVID situations, energy sector has become one of the key economic sectors that are able to provide good economic recovery opportunities. And following that, from that, we are also pursuing for the 3 others, which is the industry, innovation and infrastructure, and sustainable cities and communities. With regards to these 2 SDGs, the 9 and 11 SDGs, Encik Ambali later on will share more in terms of the low carbon city initiative that already been implemented in Malaysia in collaboration with Japan. And ultimately, all these efforts are towards the climate preservations under the SDG 13. So as we are aware that with our current commitment, Malaysia are committed to reduce our carbon intensity by 45% by 2030 from the baseline of 2005. Next slide, please. So before I go further into the renewable energy and energy efficiency, I would just like to bring the audience into a simplified versions of the electricity supply industry in Malaysia. I would say in general, globally. So when we're talking about the electricity supply industry, it always comes on the 2 perspectives that I mentioned during my opening just now, the demand side and also the supply side. So if you're looking at these figures, if you are looking at these figures, the demand side and supply side has its own constraints, in which we can see that from the demand side, that we can anticipate that there are annual demand growth driven by economic activities about 2% per annum. So if we're looking at the trending of the electricity demands, we can anticipate that the growth will be continue over the years, about 2% of growth annually. So from this annual demand growth, we can see that the contributed most the industrial sectors, which is about 40% of the total electricity demand in Malaysia, are used by the industrial sector, all the steel making, all the manufacturing industries, and followed by the commercials, 35%, and the next one are the domestic sector. So looking at this, the demographic of the demand sectors, we can see that the industrial contributed most in terms of required the electricity demands. However, if you can see that all these manufacturing industry, usually they are the ones that contribute toward these carbon emissions. So as much as possible, we need to address on this demand side in terms of the carbon emissions towards realizing our commitment to the Paris agreements. And on top of this annual demand growth driven by the economic activities, there are also annual population growth, about 1.5% annually. We anticipate, and this leads to a new demand users, and ultimately it will also increase the electricity demand over the years. And looking at the supply side, if you can see the numbers, these are basically 2016 numbers. Today, we have gaining about better in terms of the penetration of renewable energy. But if you can see from the numbers that back in 2016, about 90% of our electricity demands are supplied by the coal and gas, followed by about 11% of hydro, in which during this time, the renewable energy are getting the tractions and they are gaining up the penetrations of renewable energy in Malaysia. So we have a positive target for RE penetrations via the introduction of few mechanisms, the in-tariff large-scale solar, in which I will further elaborate in my coming slides. So these are the Malaysian commitments to reduce the national carbon emission by 45% by 2030 under the Paris Agreement 2015. And as mentioned, that energy sector are among the top 3 critical industries that are contributed toward these carbon emissions after oil and gas and transportation sectors, and also urban development. So few of the challenges towards this of the current way of supplying the electricity is, first of all, our coal are 100% imported. So while having this kind of reliance into the coal import, we are lacking of self-sufficiency, and we are subjected to the volatility of the coal, of the fossil fuel pricing. And next are the fluctuations of oil and gas price and availability. As we all might aware that over the years, over the past decade, we can see that the fluctuations of oil and gas, sometimes it goes very down, and this is good for the system in terms of they are able to reduce the operational costs. But at the same time, there are times that the oil and gas price was really high, in which it will impact the capability for the grid system operators to operate the system at an affordable price. So the concerns on the prices and the availability have become triggering alarms for a lot of countries to explore in terms of getting more self-sufficiency and utilize the local resources that we have. And next are the high dependency on fossil fuel. These are the key contributors in carbon emissions. So based on our latest report to UNFC, the United Nations, regarding our commitment to Paris agreements, about 79% of the carbon emissions are contributed from the energy sectors. And this also highlights that the energy sectors are able to provide a lot of opportunities towards these decarbonizations. And next are the constraints of potential of renewable energy. So unlike other countries like in Middle East or in the United States, for example, in which they have a lot of infertile lands that they can use for the deployment of large-scale solars. But however, like in Malaysia, we have a limited area of unfertile lands, and thus we are looking into more potentials on how we can best utilize the other RE resources as well. The next, so basically on my introduction slide just now, we can see that these two lines, the first lines are the electricity demands, the brown line. This shows that over the years, we can anticipate that there will be a continuous demand growth of the electricity. So it might be driven by the economic drivens, or it can be by the natural demand growth through the population increases. So as we can see over the years, the demand keep on increasing, and to one point that we need to make sure that the demands can be supplied at an affordable and a reliable manners. And following next are the green line, in which are the dependency on fossil fuel. So as we mentioned that earlier, that we can see that currently we are relying on the fossil fuel heavily. So moving forward, there are a lot of initiatives to shift away from this fossil fuel into renewable energy. So including some information from the financial institution itself. Currently, they have been talking and discussing about the potentials of shifting away from financing fossil fuel projects, and they are shifting their interest to more renewable and green projects. So as we can see that a lot of talks on the needs to transition from conventional ways of supplying electricity via the fossil fuel to these renewable energy sectors. There are a lot of talks from private sectors, financial institutions, and regulators and ministries. And from SEDA also, from SEDA Malaysia also, we are also involved in several international platforms, namely to name a few, arena in terms of the European markets and also ASEAN, basically to exchange ideas and to get cooperation and collaborations towards driving our national agenda for this renewable energy. So as we can see that the reliance on the fossil fuel have become is deemed to be reduced over the years. Either is driven by RE or decarbonizations driven policy, dependency on import-export versus the self-sufficiency, and also fossil fuel availability over the years. So as we can see, as we are relying less on the fossil fuel and the electricity demand increase over the years, we can see that the demand supply gap is becoming large and large over the years. So the question is, how do we want to fill up the gap? So if we want to plant up more fossil fuel plants, it has the environmental impact. And if we go for the higher penetration of renewable energy, it might impose us for a financial impact. The next slide, please. So one of the ways in terms of addressing the sustainable development of energy itself, we need to look into these three stages of energy management. So first of all is the energy conservation opportunities. So just for example, like in Japan, for example, in country like Japan, during post-Fukushima. Before the Fukushima events, Japan is relying heavily, about 90% of their electricity mix coming from nuclear technology. So post-Fukushima in 2012, when they have the issues in terms of the nuclear breakdown, we can see that they are shifting away. They need to close down all their nuclear facilities, and thus they have this gap, the shortfall capacity in terms of meeting the electricity demand of the nations. So one of the ways on how they are pursuing this gap initially, they are pursuing for this energy conservation and energy efficiency first, and over about 2 to 3 years after implementing and accelerating initiative on these two mechanisms, energy conservation and energy efficiency, we can see that the national electricity demand is able to reduce about 40% from where they are before the Fukushima incident. So first of all, I would say that the energy conservation, the key objective is to trimming the energy waste. The key is to change of behavior, and the cost to embark on this conservation is 0 to minimal cost. This mainly is more on the change of behaviors. Later on in my slides, I will try to elaborate further. And followed by that is the energy efficiency. This is improved power quality via the technology, and the key driver are the technology itself, and the cost is rather medium. And when we are already addressing at best these two items, then we move into renewable energy. And this renewable energy, at best, we try to utilize the indigenous or local resources and less dependent on fossil fuels. However, this kind of initiative is quite a high capital intensive. So as we can see on the right of my slides, we can see that this initiative are going towards more carbon neutral. However, as we go up the ranking, is a more expensive solutions, and a more detailed and cautious measures need to be undertaken to make sure that the impact of this energy transition will not burden the end users. Next slide, please. So with regards to these two items, the energy conservation and energy efficiency, so as we can see in the pictures shown below, we can see that there are a few things that are currently our standard practice as a Malaysia. For example, first of all, I would say that sometimes we open a lot of lightings during the daytime, even when there are no people around. For example, these are one of the kind of the energy waste that we are experiencing at the moment. And also that when we are not using our laptop or our computer, for example, usually we just remain it to on modes, whereas a better approach is to keep it at the standby mode, for example. And sometimes we might utilize some electrical appliances, as shown in the pictures, that, for example, like our televisions or aircon, that we are turning on the appliances throughout the night, even though when we are not really using it. So these are the kind of examples that we can pursue towards reducing the towards controlling the increase of energy demand. So there are some initiatives under the energy efficiency that require a bit of investment, such as changing from a conventional lighting to a LED lighting, in which from this simple technology introductions, we are able to reduce our electricity bills as much as 90%. So these are the few initiatives that we can consider for implementations to further reduce the electricity demands while maintaining the level of comfort that we all are able to use. So next, after mitigating the energy waste and energy quality, the power quality from of the supply, we are to explore the renewable energy in terms of getting a more diversified generation mix that includes the renewable energy that we are having in Malaysia. So in particular for Malaysia, we are exploring on these few local energy resources, namely the bioenergy potentials coming from biomass or biogas technology. And next are the hydro, solar, geothermal, and we are also under some assessment for the potential for wind energy. But however, at the moment, we see that the wind technology are not really feasible for implementation in Malaysia. So we are looking and working with external parties to see when the technology breakthrough and able to deploy wind technology in Malaysia. So next slide. In brief, in concluding my first sections, I would say that this idea is to reduce the demand-supply gap that will benefit financially, socially, and environmentally. So in my later slides, I will be more focusing on the renewable energy aspects, in which the third tier of the diagrams, whereas in Cik Bali will focusing more on the energy efficiency opportunities. So next are the renewable energy in Malaysia. Next slide. So as mentioned, that we are already like embarking on our 20th journey of renewable energy in Malaysia, starting from 2001 when we introduced the small renewable energy power, or in short, we call it SREP program. Under the SREP programs, it is mainly focusing on two resources, which is the bioenergy and also hydro. So this initiative aiming to have about 500 megawatt by 2010. However, by end of 2010, we only realized roughly about 60 megawatt of renewable energy capacity due to lack of incentive and uncommitted capacity to deliver for TMB, for the utility itself. So lesson learned from these SREP programs, ministries alongside with the stakeholders, we are formulating for this FIT mechanism, the feed-in tariff mechanism, with the establishment of RE Act 2011 in 2011. So alongside with this introduction of feed-in tariff mechanism, SEDA is also established to drive this initiative and the renewable energy sector as a whole. So after 5 years of implementing the feed-in tariff mechanism, we can see a good take-ups. Roughly about 5 years, we can see a lot of deployment of solar projects, either it be ground-mounted or rooftop solar, and some of floating solar, in which they are from smaller capacity at the households until a large-scale capacity that are connected to the grid itself. So over the years, over these 5 years of FIT implementations, we can see a lot of deployment. Aside from solar, there are also deployment on biomass, biogas, and small hydro initiative. And as of 2016, we are able to realize roughly about 6 gigawatt of renewable energy capacity, including the deployment of large hydro projects. And looking forward, after we see that in particular for solar technology itself, under the feed-in tariff mechanism, from where we are at 2011 until about 2017, we are able to see price reductions of the solar installation costs, roughly about 60% from where the costs are in 2011. So looking at these good take-ups and good response from the market, the ministry and also the regulators are formulating for other new RE programs, namely the LSS, the large scale solar, net energy metering, and CELCO, to promote for the solar industry with a particular constraint frameworks. So later on my slides, I will try to elaborate more on these 4 RE programs, the FIT, LSS, NEM, and CELCO. So as of 2020, December 2020, we have realized about 23% of the national energy mix coming from renewable energy resources, with the cumulative capacity about 8.4 gigawatts. So these are tremendous growth that we can see from where we are back in 2010, in which back in 2010, the renewable energy contributed less than 1% of the national energy mix. Then in today, we are already like able to reach 23% of the national of renewable energy. So we see that this achievement are not solely driven by the private sectors or organizations like SEDA in Malaysia also, but it's actually a contributions from all the publics, all the electricity users, because as the feed-in tariff is contributed by all our contributions via the electricity bills itself. So together we are able to deliver this 23% of RE capacity by last year. And moving forward, we are pursuing for a higher growth in terms of the RE capacity. About 31% are the targets that we set for year 2025, and about 40% for year 2035. So looking at where we are today until the targets that we try to realize in 2035, there are still about 10 gigawatt of capacity, about 10,000 megawatt of capacity from renewable energy resources that we are trying to deploy and to realize by 2035. So a lot of initiatives are being undertaken, and discussion and explorations on new mechanisms, new RE resources are being explored to make sure that we are able to commit to these commitments and to realize to 40% towards a cleaner and greener future. Next slide, please. And this based on our assessment, we can see that Malaysia, located in this in the equator, we are blessed with a lot of renewable energy potentials. So as we can see from the graph, that we can see that the solar PV have a very vast potentials and opportunity for growth, about 270 gigawatt. Just for information, that currently combining all the electricity demand for Peninsular Malaysia, Sabah and Sarawak, our peak demand is only about 25 gigawatt. So as we can see, the potentials are a lot more, and we can explore a lot of things to make sure that the transitions into this renewable energy can become a very sustainable directions. And following these potentials for solar PV, inclusive of ground-mounted potentials, floating potentials, and also rooftop potentials. And we can see that the potentials are equally distributed throughout the three regions. So Peninsular Malaysia have the potentials to explore in terms of the solar potentials. Sarawak and Sabah have the equal opportunities to explore their RE local solar resources. And following from that, next are the hydro potentials. If you can see, we are separating the large hydro and small hydro. It is mainly by the definition itself. So for hydro facilities that have the capacity above 100 megawatt is usually categorized as large hydro. And we can see that combining this large hydro and small hydro, roughly we have about 15 to 16 gigawatt of potentials that are not being explored at the moment. So looking forward, these are also some of the technical potentials that we will be exploring towards achieving the national target of 40% by 2035. And next are the bioenergy. So being one of the most producers of palm oils, we are also able to harness the potentials to utilize the byproducts from the palm oil productions for bioenergy itself. So at the moment, we already have about 100 over megawatt of bioenergy plants in operations. And looking forward, this will be one of the key areas that we will be exploring to deploy for the energy mix. And next are the geothermal. I would say that geothermal, we have a very site-specific potentials. But however, I believe that embarking on these few site-specific that have been identified, mainly at the Tawau, Sabah, and also in Perak, by exploring on these potentials, it will give a good kickoff in terms of deploying for a more accelerated initiative to push for new RE resources. So if we're looking at the trend of the price, so usually the price trending gives the signals on the economic feasibility to accelerate certain type of RE resources. So as we can see that why globally we see that solar and wind are the most accelerated initiative under the RE transition phase is because of the price declinations are the most significant. So if you can see that for the solar photovoltaic, for example, over these 10 decades, we can see roughly about 70 to 80% of price declinations since 2010. So this has become like back then it has been one of the most expensive energy, but in today it is already like comparable, if not lower, with the fossil fuels. So that in Malaysia as well, we can see that a lot of initiative to push for more solar capacity are in place, and these are in line due to the price trending itself. And followed next are the wind. As we can see that wind is also show a down trending. But looking at the other RE resources, including the bioenergy and the hydro potentials, for example, the price is roughly about stagnant over the years, if not increased over the years, due to additional environmental requirements that are being imposed. Next slide. So next, I will just to go an overview on the four RE programs that are available in Malaysia at the moment. So first of all is the feed-in tariff. As mentioned, it was introduced back in 2011, and this is to promote the RE development via the incentive mechanism and 1.6% of collection from the utility itself, from all the users, that are paying the electricity bills. 1.6% of this surcharge goes into this RE fund, in which this will be utilized to catalyze the RE markets. So under this feed-in tariff mechanisms, we are exploring on these 5 potentials of RE resources: solar, biomass, biogas, mini hydro, and geothermal. However, back in 2016, the quota for solar itself under this FIT was fully taken up, and thus we continue with all the non-solar resources. And currently, we are conducting an annual e-bidding exercise. Like recently, back in July, we are also concluding for tendering auctions of hydro, biomass, and biogas with cumulative capacity of 188 megawatt, in which we are currently under the review of SEDA Malaysia with regards to the proposal that we received. And also part of the initiative under the feed-in tariff is that part of the locations and for this RE fund is utilized under this My Surya program, in which we are try to assist the B40 group to generate incomes from the installation of solar at their rooftop. So just to mention that in terms of the commercial arrangements, those that are able to secure a quota under this feed-in tariff, it will under the commercial arrangement of power purchase agreements. Usually the term will lasting for about 16 to 21 years, in which the project developers can rest assured that there will be a guaranteed off-takers throughout this period of time. And next are the net energy metering. So net energy metering has been introduced since 2016. And so far, we already launched the recent NEM 3.0 back in January 2021, in which we already announced the introduction of these two categories, NEM Rakyat, mainly to focus on the domestic installation of RE resources, and NEM Government under the to promote for government buildings installations. And next are the NEM Nova, which was introduced in April 2021, focusing on the quota for commercial and industrial sector. So over the years, we can see that under this NEM and net energy metering programs, from NEM 1.0, NEM 2.0, and NEM 3.0, this is mainly to promote the commercializations of solar rooftop, and about 1,000 megawatt of quota was opened up for applications. Next slide, please. So next are these two initiatives are driven by our partners, Surajaya Tenaga. The first is the large-scale solar 2016. This is mainly to promote the competitive development of large-scale solar or floating solar. And this was mainly focusing just on the solar technology itself. And so far, we have completed about 4 auctions from 2016, 2018, 2019, and until recently, the LSS4, or we call it LSS Mentari. So this is also part of the grid connections projects, in which it will be binded by the power purchase agreement for 21 years. And the last one are the Selco initiative. This is mainly to drive the, it's quite similar with the net energy metering, but the difference are that under those installation under the Selco initiative is mainly for self-consumption only, whereas for the net energy metering, any excess energy, they are able to sell it to the grid, to the utility itself. So these are the 4 initiatives that are promoting for renewable energy installations and under certain frameworks to allow for investors and investments and private sectors to explore the benefits that they can realize from all these programs. The next slide, please. So as of today, we're talking about 8.45 gigawatt of capacity that already in operations. We can see that all the regions, Peninsular Malaysia, Sabah and Sarawak, has contributed significantly to this achievement. And currently, I would say that the hydro has become one of the key the dominance resources contributed to where we are today. But looking forward, solar will also become more competitive and more mixed from the solar, in which, like looking at the 2035 projections, we can anticipate that the contribution from hydro and solar will become the 2 competitive dominance RE resources in Malaysia. But following from that, as much as possible, we also try to open up opportunities for other sectors as well, including the biomass and biogas sectors. So hence, we are also allocating and try to accelerate the deployment for this biomass and also biogas energy. Next slide, moving forward, we can see that PV has, the photovoltaic has become more commercially available to many, including domestic users. And we anticipate, based on the industrial feedbacks, we anticipate that there will be a new market business models toward accelerating the PV-based resources. Like currently, we are working in terms of the regulated models, namely the net energy metering and LSS, for example. But looking forward, these are the areas that we might be explore and embark in Malaysia roadmaps. Next slide, please. So there, in my next few slides, my apology, but I think I might running out of time a bit, so I might go over the photos quickly. So if you can see that these are one of the low carbon buildings, the Surajaya Tenaga buildings, in which we can see that the design itself is facilitating for lesser energy consumptions. So the buildings are constructed via glass windows, in which it will optimize the natural lighting into the buildings, and this will avoid the needs to have full lighting on during the daytime. And on top of that, the rooftop is also built ready for solar installations, and these two coupling together are able to manage the utilization of electricity in the building itself. Next slide, please. And these are the few samples of the solar rooftop. As we can see that there are a lot of potentials for deploying on solar, depending on the structure of the building itself. So you can see the high-rise buildings such as the TMB building in Brickfields, they have also installed numbers of solar capacity at their rooftops. And even a low buildings such as houses and industrial buildings, they are also able to utilize the solar capacity for their consumptions. And even at the off-grid solutions, I see that there's this one picture at the downside, the traditional house in Sabah. We are able also to explore the potential for utilizing the solar resources to electrify the rural electrification for the rural populations. So as we can see that for these benefits in particular, we can see that the installation of solar at this traditional house enables for economic growth at the local itself. They are able to utilize the electricity to locally produce their local products for selling and for tradings, in which we will generate incomes for the populations at these rural areas. Next slide. Next slide, please. And these are the sample of a large-scale solar farm, about 50 megawatt of capacity. This is actually owned by UiTM Power. So if you can see that the utilization of large-scale solar utilize quite extensive land areas, but rest assured that all the environmental impact have been assessed accordingly with the directions from Department of Environmental to make sure that all the impact to environment has been mitigated and addressed accordingly. Next. And these are just some samples of a hydroelectricity plant in Cameron Highlands, Pahang. So you can see that these are also one of the developments on the large hydro scales, in which it can benefit in terms of providing the job opportunities for the locals and also for generating efficient and affordable electricity resources. And these are in Cameron Highlands, and the next one is on the Bakun. So if we are aware that these are one of the highest hydroelectricity plants in Southeast Asia, contributed from this Bakun with the capacity of 2,400 megawatt, and is located a bit at the rural areas to make sure that the impact of environment will not affect the social, will have a minimal social impacts. Next, these are the off-grid solar projects, also supply clean energy to 31 households in Sarawak. So these are the flexibility that solar technology can offer, in which it does not need extensive grid infrastructures. It just requires some simple cablings from the solar system to the end users. So this has become one of the most popular solutions towards rural electrifications. So in a nutshell, to conclude my second section, is that the energy transition phase has been identified as one of the main economic recovery post-pandemic. So towards realizing our near future targets, the 31% by 2025, we anticipate a cumulative investment of 20 billion to be into the nations. And this transition is also to open up employment opportunities, about 30,000 numbers. And in line with the other decarbonization agenda in Malaysia, Malaysia expects that this RE growth in the energy mix will able to reduce the greenhouse emissions from energy sector by 45% in 2030. So next are my concluding remarks. If we can move to the next slide. So looking at the value chains of the RE industry itself, I would say that these are the career opportunities that all can try to explore. So with regards, for example, a sample of value chain for RE projects, let's say for a solar projects, it is not mainly, they have a vast opportunities for career opportunities from the site analysis, system design, in which these are in the phase of consultancy works. And moving forward, there are also the project development phase itself, in which it involves procurements, installation, inspections, and testing and commissionings of the project itself. So, and the last one is the operation and maintenance. These are the current value chains for solar industry, for example, in which for every of this chain will open up a more career and advancement and opportunities for people to employ. And moving forward, we can say that these value chains are mainly based on a linear economy model. But looking forward, we are pursuing for the circular economy. For example, like in Malaysia at the moment, we already like have a two circular bioeconomy, in which first of all is the plastic circular economy, and the second one is on the bioeconomy model itself. This is mainly to support the growth of the bioenergy sector itself. So when we are utilizing the circular bioeconomy, we can make sure that there are no wastage and no unutilized used items that are just simply go to waste, but rather we can able to explore the potentials for recycle, repurpose, reuse, and reproduce the used materials for byproducts that can be utilized for economic supports. And looking way forward, like in Malaysia also, that we are pursuing for the circular solar economy. They have been talked by financial institutions in particular to drive the circular economy for solar industry itself. So at the moment, I would say that these are the 5 elements in the value chains of the economy of solar economy. So looking at this chain, the first is the productions, distributions, and consumptions. That are currently the sectors that are being explored under the solar industry itself. And moving forward, we are looking to explore, to extend these potentials for the 4th and 5th cycles, which is to manage the end-of-life assets. For example, like the solar panels, they are become one of the key concerns towards addressing what to be done with the used solar panels. Damaged solar panels, like do we just simply to put it as waste, or we can able to utilize the materials that compose the solar panels for a better purpose. So these are the areas that we'll be exploring, and we are expecting for the near future that more opportunities of careers can be explored in these regions. And my next slide, and this is my key takeaways. So first of all, I would say that the key importance are to raise the awareness. I would say that the session today hosted by Yayasan Strategic Social is very timely, in particular to engage the youth of today to also explore the potentials under this renewable energy and sustainable energy transition. So first of all, the raise awareness. Presently, the why go factor for sustainable energy are still vague. Message pursue the renewables as business opportunity, but it has more opportunities than just for business opportunity. As ultimately, this is also to address the climate change that we are experiencing at the moment, and to make sure that the next generations able to lead a quality life with respect to the green agenda. And next, on the potential itself, I would say that the renewable energy currently is explored mainly for energy production only. But looking way forward, that we can see that other sectors are also able to benefit from this renewable energy itself. So first of all, the industrial process, the heating, cooling purposes, transportations are among the sectors that have been earmarked for the deployment of renewable energy. So in the future, we can anticipate that this renewable energy, it can go beyond energy. It can also be utilized for direct applications to reduce the electricity demands. So as we can see, like globally in the table below, we can see that about 51% of renewable energy is used for thermal applications globally, and followed by transportation and power is actually the least contributions from this renewable energy. So moving forward, the industry are looking for innovative and endurance from the youth towards enhancing the sustainable growth of the nations. So I would say that the youth usually have a very creative minds and creative ideas on how we can best optimize the potentials of renewable energy per se. So looking forward, we are anticipating for more collaboration with the youth towards how we can together build up the greener future. So and hence, I would say that this is my concluding remarks. Sorry for taking a bit of longer time. Next slide. So thank you, and I will hand over back to Puan Arnis.
Thank you, Encik Ibrahim, for the insightful presentation. So we have around 200 participants today, and feel free to drop questions at the chat box section. So the next speaker is Encik Muhammad Shah Hambali Arifin. He is currently the Deputy Director of the Technical Development and Facilitation, who oversees energy management, low carbon building, and city initiatives. He is an environmental engineer by training and a certified energy manager. He holds a master's degree in engineering environment from University of Malaya and bachelor's degree in technology, majoring in environment from University Science Malaysia. Over to you, Cik Hamadi.
Okay, thank you Anis for your kind introduction. So, Assalamualaikum, selamat petang, very good evening. So as I mentioned just now by our madam moderator, I got to know that today we have a quite number of turnout, almost 200 participants. Congratulations and thank you for attending today's webinar session by Seda Malaysia with the collaboration with Yayasan Strategic Social. So I will now proceed with my presentation on EE, a government initiative on SAFE 2.0. What is SAFE 2.0? Later on I will explain in detail. And lastly, I will share some information on career opportunities, mainly focusing on low carbon future. So before I go deep on EE, energy efficiency, just now our first speaker, Cik Ibrahim, has already touched on renewable energy. So allow me to present why sustainable energy, renewable energy and energy efficiency is actually important and how it can be impacted the climate change for Malaysia and global. So basically, as you can see from the slide, for another matter is that my slide is actually a combination of both bilingual bahasa in English for covering for bahasa in Malaysia in English and English. So my presentation first slide is actually on the global problem. The climate change actually is the problem. Then one of the solution is actually our concern as a human, matters related to environment and also economy. Okay, next. So I will touch a bit on the global problem, the climate change issue. So the problem, as you know, is actually the climate change, mainly because of the human activity. So we are actually the one who are responsible in producing and releasing carbon emission to the environment. So one of the solution is actually the energy efficient technology and low carbon city and lifestyle. So including the energy management and also energy efficiency, largely by technology providing by the government and also the technology provider in Malaysia and also global. Okay, next slide. So a brief on the greenhouse gases, GHG. This is actually 7 main contributor of greenhouse gases. The one that I think is already know about is actually carbon dioxide, CO2, released through natural process such as respiration and volcanic eruption, and also mainly by human activities such as deforestation, land use changes, and burning fossil fuels. Then we have some other contributor, for example, fluorocarbon, CFC, water vapor is actually one of the GHG, and hydrofluorocarbon, HFC, and the rest, including NOx and also methane. So, okay, next. So this is actually the greenhouse effect. I think most of you is already have a knowledge on the greenhouse effect, say how it can be impacted to the environment. So basically, what we face right now is actually a double warming of Earth, global warming, mainly because of the accumulation of greenhouse gases at the stratosphere. So yeah, so actually it is actually impacted our daily life that I will briefly present later on. Okay, next slide. So this is the global warming. Okay, data from 1880 till 2020 from NASA. Okay, so as you can see, there are a relative increase of temperature. All right, from 1980 to 2020. Okay, so this is actually a quite jump in temperature increase. All right, so if you can see from the slide, it's actually 1 degree Celsius. Look small, but it's actually the impact is actually quite large. All right, next. So same thing with global. This is actually data for Malaysia from Jabatan Meteorologi Malaysia 2019. So back in 2019, the temperature is actually 27.63 degrees Celsius. There are increased number of 0.69 degrees Celsius above normal. So the normal temperature is actually 26.94 degrees Celsius. All right. So what is the impact of this global warming and increasing of temperature? Basically, number one, okay, next slide, Iqbal. So, for example, the typhoon Lekima hit northern region. Again, this is actually data from Jabatan Meteorologi Malaysia 2019. So, what is the impact? Is actually over 3,000 residential homes being damaged and 329 school and education institutions in 7 states were also affected by the storm. So, basically, northern region of Malaysia, including Perlis, Kedah, Pulau Pinang, and Perak. So the next one is actually heat wave in Peninsula Malaysia. If you can remember, Q1 of 2021, this year, we actually facing a heat wave in Malaysia, in few states in Malaysia, including Kuala Lumpur and also Selangor. So basically, what is the effect of this heat wave? Actually, the heat and also water shortage for Malaysia. All right. So also in 2019, there are dry weather resulted in heat. Okay, back in 2019, specifically in September 2019. All right. So partly, especially federal city in Malaysia, including Kuala Lumpur and also Putrajaya, is actually much affected by the heat. Okay, most of these federal cities actually hit quite a serious number of pollution index, which is exceeded 200 reading, including Sarawak, Negeri Sembilan, and also the rest of the federal cities. Right, next. Again, in 2021, source from Bernama, effect of the global warming, including the flooding. Okay, there are increases in rainfall intensity that leads to increase in erosion, and later, basically, material delivered to the receiver system in may lead to change in the river channel, and ultimately will affect the environmental condition, specifically flooding. All right. Okay, next. And like I mentioned just now, also the shortage of water. This actually happened in three dams in few states in Malaysia, which is Kedah and 2 in Johor. All right, including the Bukit Kuang in Kelantan. All right. So next. So my next question is actually overview of energy efficiency. Just now, Cik Ibrahim already touched on renewable energy. All right, next. So what is the energy efficiency? Okay, basically, if we discuss or mentioning about energy efficiency, the three main factor is actually safety, comfort, and quality. So energy efficiency is actually the minimal use of energy without compromising first safety, second comfort, and also third one is quality. So basically, in order for us to meet the target and also to achieve the energy efficiency, energy management, whether in your house or your office, make sure these three criteria is taken into account lah. All right. For example, safety, make sure in order for you to reduce the electricity consumption for your house, for example, make sure your lighting is actually approved by CIRIM and NSP. Okay. The second one is comfort. So in order for you to reduce your electricity and meet your EE target, make sure that the tenant of that building is comfortable enough with the environment and also the room condition. And lastly, the quality of the product must be equal or similar to the equal or more than the normal product. All right. So next. So yeah, this is actually basically Encik Ibrahim also already touched on the hierarchy of energy management. It's just that I want to highlight some of the program provided by the government of Malaysia. So the first one is actually energy conservation, mainly mainly focusing on change in culture and habit. This is actually more on behavioral changes. So some of the activity done by the government is actually introducing the environmental syllabus in preschool and also higher learning institute, right? Then the rest is actually the continuing activity perkhidmatan berterusan, whether by the whether at home or at office. Then the second tier is actually the renewing process. This is actually you involve the technology. Some of the government initiative by the government is actually program SAFE 2.0. Later on, I will touch in detail what is SAFE 2.0. Then we have minimum energy performance standard currently under Suruhanjaya Tenaga, and also smart meter by TNB. So this is actually one of the example. The rest is, for example, changing of lighting system to energy efficient, use of 4 or 5-star energy efficient equipment. All right. And then lastly, we have alternative sources from renewable energy to offset your energy consumption. Okay. Just now, Ibrahim has introduced the name 3.0 and also Selco by ST. Okay, next. Okay, so the SAFE program, sustainability achieved via energy efficiency program, SAFE 2.0 program, is actually government provide an e-rebate 200 ringgit for public, any domestic user, to buy 4 or 5-star equipment, specifically for refrigerator and also air conditioning. All right. So the e-rebate is actually RM200 for 150,000 domestic users in Malaysia. First come, first serve basis. So the implementing agency is actually Seda Malaysia with the collaboration of Suruhanjaya Tenaga. And actually this program is actually under Ministry of Energy and Sumber Asli Resources. Okay, next. So what is SAFE 2.0? Like I mentioned just now, it's a rebate RM200 untuk pembelian penyamak udara atau sejuk. Okay, so the keyword is actually first e-rebate RM200. Second one is actually only for 4 and 5-star equipment, refrigerator and air conditioning. Okay, and also it available for domestic user, 150,000 domestic user, first come first serve basis. All right. Okay, next one. So yeah, this is actually like I mentioned now, 150,000 for domestic user in Malaysia. Okay, next one. So we have collaborated with few stakeholders in order for us to make this program run smooth according to timeline. So we have collaborated with 4 main syarikat electric in Malaysia, which is Tenaga Nasional, Sabah Electricity, Sarawak Energy, and also Nur Power. So Suruhanjaya Tenaga is actually our collaborator also. Then to meet the current IR 4.0 and also future demands, more people is actually looking forward to online shopping platform. So we are already collaborating with 3 main online platform in Malaysia, which is Lazada, PG Mall, and Shopee. And some people may more interested to buy their product through physical store. So we already have participation from 105 retailers across Malaysia, including Sabah and Sarawak. All right. Next one. Okay. So this is actually the criteria. Very simple. As long you are Malaysian first. Second one, you're actually the domestic electricity user from 4 main electricity provider, which is TNB, SCSB, SCB, and Nur Power. The third one, as I mentioned just now, product only for 4 and 5-star refrigerator and air conditioning. Okay, air conditioner, sorry. So like, and then satu akaun bil elektrik, satu e-rebate, 450,000 tulisan pertama saja. Maksudnya for 150,000 first usage saja, first user saja. Alright, next one. So this is actually the manfaat program. So first one is actually focusing on the saving cost saving for public to buy 4 and 5-star refrigerator and also air conditioning. Second one is to support the government initiative on energy efficiency, low carbon and also sustainable energy. And the last one is to provide awareness to public and also to grassroots target group. Next one. So this is actually mechanism. There will for this SIP 2.0, like I mentioned, there are two main method of application. First one is actually through the platform Idaga, our online platform, Shopee, Lazada, and PG Mall, and the another one is actually from retailers. So very simple. For the first one is actually through the retailers. You can go directly to the retailers registered with Seda Malaysia, check your account number, electricity account number, and the result actually will be received directly from retailers less than 5 minutes. Basically, it's actually live system. So basically, if you are eligible to apply, then the purchase will be deducted, will include the rebate RF 200. All right, next one. Same thing with PG Mall. You can visit any online platform that you are comfortable with, whether PG Mall, Lazada, and Shopee. Select your product, and you can communicate directly with the retailer registered with these three platform, online platform, Shopee platform. Then, if you're eligible, there will be 200 deduction by rebate SIP 2.0. All right, next one. Cool. So if you need further information on SIP program, you can easily visit our website, whether Seda Malaysia website, www.seda.gov.my, or microsite specifically for SIP 2.0, www.safeenergy.gov.my. So basically in there are all the information you need. For example, how to apply, who is the registered retailer, and we also provide some FAQ for you to refer. All right, next one. So this is actually some of our material on SIP 2.0. Okay, then like I mentioned just now, I will share a bit on what is low carbon green carrier. So for example, it's actually, as you can see in the slide, it involves sustainability, both renewability and also efficiency. So it's actually a quite wide carrier opportunity. So low carbon green is actually a carrier for the future. So you can work at low carbon transportation, green construction, and also you can be an NGO for environment, civil engineer. If you are looking at architecture or housing, building planning, green is actually one of the factors to be included in. All right, so jobs in business that produce goods or provide service that benefit of the environment or consume natural resources. That is actually definition of low carbon green carrier. So actually, I prefer the terms low carbon instead of green. All right. Okay, next one. So this is actually some of the challenges in Malaysia versus carrier opportunities. So there are 7 key challenges recognized by Malaysia. For Malaysia, okay, for example, there are gaps in policy direction. So I believe in future, low carbon is actually one of the main key area to be included in or factor in. So the rest is actually implementation and education, or maybe you are interested in IR 4.0 data for GHG inventory. Right now, there are weak availability and access of data, lack of proper data, especially in Malaysia, weak accuracy and also ecosystem methodology. So you can be data modeler, researcher, in fact, as a software developer engineer. Or maybe you are very keen, or maybe you're a people-oriented person. So you can be one of the prominent NGO on environment, or maybe you can be social media influencer advocating about environment in Malaysia. So the rest, like source of funding and financing that involve green finances, sustainable analysis. In Seda Malaysia, we are already collaborating with one of the bank, some of the bank in Malaysia in providing a green incentive to the public, especially on renewable energy. Then, if you are looking, if you are working with PDT, with local authority, you are promoting the low carbon development and urban planning. All right. Even if you are normal house worker or housewife, we still can contribute to the environment, being a good and also participate in community, providing the environment solution. All right. Next, Ibang. So this is actually some of the training provided by Seda Malaysia. Some of our capacity building program in Seda Malaysia. We have renewable energy and also energy efficiency. So actually, we are covering both aspects of sustainable energy, RE and also EE. So if you are interested to join one of these training, you can easily visit our website www.seda.gov.my. So you can look at all the data in there. And if you need further clarification and also information, you can easily also communicate with one of the staff in Seda Malaysia. So I think that this is actually my last presentation. Thank you again for participating, and I pass to you back our Miss Moderator, Puan Hanis. Thank you.
Thank you, Encik Muhammad Shah Hamali, for the presentation just now. So ladies and gentlemen, if you are interested to join SEDA for career opportunities, do visit www.seda.gov.my at job@seda for further details of the recruitment. Meanwhile, for internship placement, application can be made by emailing the official letter from your university or college together with your resume. And internship placement will depend on the availability of the post and upon request by SEDA Malaysia.